My name is Mindy Doherty. I am a trauma nurse, interventional radiology nurse, medical researcher, and now I work for long-term care facility nursing, which means that I teach caregivers how to care for their clients or family members, depending on where we're at. Doing foster care, um, not so much in the hospital sector anymore. I've been in the hospital, working with the hospital setting since 1997. I was in the military from 95 to 99. I was a 91 Bravo combat medic, field medic. So I did the field the first half of my service and then hospital setting, and then was the boss president, which is Better Opportunities for Single Soldiers, and was sent to Washington to basically oversee and try to help single soldiers have a better life, because as we know, living in the barracks is not that great. And so anything that I could do to better our installation as well as other installations, that's what I wanted to do. And so when I was in the service, when I went to Bosnia, Croatia, and Hungary, I was stationed in Germany first. And we basically took a convoy from, well, we were on a convoy from Hungary, which is Tezar, Hungary, to Tuzla West in Bosnia, Croatia, and Hungary is where I was at. So the Hungarians were cooking our food, and that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. But I ended up getting a parasite in my gut, which basically created appendicitis and pancreatitis at the same time. And I was vomiting for a couple days. I was on guard duty for a couple days, and at the time, my sergeant was kind of lazy, so he didn't want to do any of the standing guard or doing anything. So I had to pick up that slack, basically, as we all know. And in Bosnia, it was so cold that like even wearing something called a bear suit wasn't enough. So I was cold, sick, hungry, and tired at the same time, which really isn't a good combo for when you're sick. And so, make a long story short, I basically went to the next base, was on sick call, and they were like, you can't do it this way. You're considered AWOL, because I learned Czechoslovakian in 3 days, hitchhiked over with a bus, and they were like, you can't be here. We can't even help you right now. Go back and do it the right way. So I was on guard duty for an additional day. And then I went and was on sick call, basically. And then I took a bus from our base to Tuzla, Maine, and then to somewhere else. And so basically, I think it was called Bedrock at the time. This was in 1996, October 1996. And so when I got there, basically my colors had changed. I was still vomiting, and I couldn't keep any fluids down. So they sent me back to Germany on a C-130. And when I got there, they said, no, you have an ovarian cyst. And I was like, I've never had problems with my ovaries, and I've never thrown up because of my period pains. So they took an ovarian cyst out. It was 5 centimeters, which is quite large for an ovary. And I was on vacation, went home, said hello to my mom, came back, and was still getting super sick. So my friend at the time in the barracks was like, hey, if you keep getting sick, just knock on my door and I'll take you to what's called a Krankenhaus, which is a German hospital, because when you're on base, you go to sick call on base. If you're sick during the weekends or after hours, you go to the German hospitals and facilities to get help. And so I guess I had knocked on his door and then I had passed out, because from that point, I didn't remember until I woke up the next day. And they had told him that I had 5 minutes left to live because I had severe appendicitis and pancreatitis at the same time, which is dangerous. You can die from both of those. And so basically, I had my appendix taken out and was still getting pancreatitis for 8 years after. So they took my gallbladder out in 1997. And then when I got out of the service, I wanted to go to nursing school. So I attempted to use the GI Bill. and I was still getting pancreatitis. So there were times where I'd go to school and then I'd get sick, and then go to school and then get sick. So I had to withdraw after basically a year of schooling, put it on pause, and got basically went from temporary duty retirement list to permanent duty retirement list, which made me unemployable. So I got out of the military after 4 years on a medical and returned back to New Jersey first, and was a volunteer firefighter during that time. However, I was supposed to go turn up for volunteer status, and the day I was supposed to go on the ambulance, I basically got pancreatitis again. So I was sent to the hospital. And I just felt so defeated just because I was like, when is this going to end? And so with the pancreatitis, basically every time I had gotten pancreatitis, you go what's called NPO for a long time, usually a week to 2 weeks to a month. My longest stint was about 4 months. And then I was basically on something called TPN, which is total parental nutrition. And I had basically, they put in what's called a PICC line from here all the way up through the heart. And so I got my nutrition that way. And after I'd gotten pancreatitis for between 6th and 7th year, I finally had something called a pusto, where they fillet the pancreas open like a fish, and to see if that would work. And then they rewired my intestines. That didn't work, and I was cut from rib to rib. So then about 7 to 8 months later, I had something called a Whipple, and they take the head off, rewire the intestines again, cut me rib to rib again, and I recovered. So for a little while. 6 months later, I had pancreatitis again, and I was just tired. I was like, just take it out. I don't need a pancreas. Do something. So that's what they did. They ended up taking, on the 8th year, they took my pancreas out with my duodenum. So I have no appendix, no gallbladder, no duodenum, and no pancreas. So that made me default an automatic diabetic. And though I look fine on the outside, basically up until now, I have 96-year-old bones based on what's called a DEXA scan. So in order to stop the progression of my diseases, basically with diabetes as well, I wanted to get stem cells because my friend Boone Cutler, who's a buddy of mine, he also has a book with the same publisher that I have, and Malachias Gaskin. We all basically know the same person. So Malachias got me in touch with Boone Cutler and with Robbie Grayson. So I wrote a book, and it went to Amazon.com, and it's called The Resilient Warrior. And it basically is staged from the beginning of my life to basically 2019, I want to say. And I created a company called Feed My City. I thought I was dying anyway. So I was like, I'll just put in a bunch of trees and it'll create an orchard, not realizing I did not have enough space in my backyard. There's probably enough for maybe 5 trees, and I put in 22 trees. So needless to say, I had to get those taken out between the years. And I've lived in Oregon now since 2014. It's where I chose to live, picked a place to live. And so basically I was mastering each of the medications, and I was on over 17 medications at this time. And so Boone Cutler, knowing Robbie had talked to Boone Cutler about stem cells, and he went to Panama because he only had between 3 to 6 months to live. Excuse me. He had basically 3 to 6 months to live because of his heart. So he was basically going in failure. So he went to Panama, got stem cells, and his worked so well that Robbie was like, you know what? This might work for Mindy. Let's talk about this. So I got flown to Miami for stem cells in the United States, and I did what's called a mesenchymal. With a mesenchymal stem cells, basically they take your own cells, which if you're as old as I am right now, I am 48 years old, and that was a couple years ago. You're taking basically your own bad cells and putting it back into the body. And that's not really good because then it replicates those same cells. Stem cells are very smart. They go to the point of inflammation. And I spent over probably 10 grand, 12 grand trying to get stem cells between the places in Miami that I was flown to and in Oregon. And after I spent my own money, I was like, this isn't working. So I done some research and I found a company called BioAccelerator. BioAccelerator is in Medellin, Colombia. They're the #1 stem cell company in the world. They do a lot of athletes such as MMA, UFC, hockey, football players, and then regular people as well that are not famous or celebrities, how you say. And so once I was cued in to get stem cells, I went to my bonus sister's Misha Tate, and her mom had adopted me basically after she read my book. And so I went to go visit her, and I saw that she had an HBOT in her house. And I was like, oh, I want one of those. And HBOT stands for Hyperbaric Oxygen Therapy. And what it does is you wear a nasal cannula, and there's deep-seated oxygen. And this is well known through the divers, because if you get decompression sickness, which happens when you go up to the water surface too fast when you're a diver or you spend too much time down there and you come up too quickly. So with HBOT, basically it helps with decompression sickness, but what it also does is it helps viable cells, it increases the stem cell rate and helps regenerate cells, decreases inflammation. And so when I saw that Misha had one, I called Robbie Grayson, and I was like, Robbie, Misha has a HBOT in her house. Is there a possibility of getting one of these sponsored for me? Because I think that I need one of these after all these stem cells that I've done. And he's like, well, I don't know. So he called some people and they basically said no. So I called the same person and basically begged. And I begged him for help. I was like, listen, this is my situation. I'm in dire need of this HBOT. I'm about to get some stem cells through BioAccelerator. And I was told that if I get these stem cells, utilizing HBOT would not only help me, but it would possibly reverse some things. And I was really, really hopeful. So I got sponsored through Oxygen Therapy, and they sent me their own, basically it's about 6 or 7 feet long, and it's a 1-person chamber. So you get in, you lie down. Some have seated HBOTs, some have laying down HBOTs, and then some have rooms that you can actually go into and encapsulate. There are some hard shells. The difference between a hard shell and a light soft shell is basically the hard shell can give you more bang for your buck, if you will, whereas a soft shell isn't medically, you don't have to have a medical advisor be there. So you can do it on your own at home. And that's what I wanted. That's what I needed. Because I had spent over $5,000 already going to a hard shell HBOT to try to get any help and therapies that I could possibly get with the civilian Americanized stem cells, which honestly didn't work. So I was excited to be able to go to Medellin, Colombia, and I got stem cells placed in my scalp, in my face, IV, and through my shins and through my feet. And I ended up having a seizure. So I got sent back to make sure that everything was okay. And 18 months later, I got something called an intrathecal stem cells. And that's where they put it in your spinal cord. It's the only way to get to the blood-brain barrier. So those who have concussions, traumatic brain injury, short for TBI, Parkinson's, MS, which is multiple sclerosis, and all sorts of diseases, it's best to get some of these through the spinal cord so that it goes up to the brain, because then a lot of people that have been in wheelchairs have actually successfully gotten out of their wheelchair. I was bedbound for 3 years and 8 months, so we'll basically say 4 years. And I just shortly after my first stem cell with BioAccelerator, it took me another 8 months to 12 months doing physical therapy and all sorts of different rehabs, along with HBOT that I had in my house at this point in time. And I was doing 2-hour sessions daily to try to get any help that I possibly could get, because the pain, I had something called chronic regional pain syndrome. Unfortunately, I was tortured at the San Antonio, Texas VA hospital for 4 straight months. So the reason I'm in Oregon is I got rescued and brought here. And to back up, I had basically been starved. Unfortunately, was assaulted between 1 and 4 doctors in the OR. They did not give me a block to get pain medication through my left leg. So I had what's called a left bimallear ankle fracture, tibia fibula fracture. So both of my ankles on my left foot were broken and shattered. Then I had a tibia fibula fracture, and that's why I couldn't walk. People are like, well, back up. How did this happen again? And it was basically I was pruning a tree, and I was really tired, and I should have stopped earlier, but I didn't. And in Texas, they treat veterans very differently than they do in other states. It was very harsh in the harsh treatments that I got. So with a pain block, you don't feel your surgeries. You don't feel them going in and doing the anesthetic, basically. I felt everything. And so I was basically sexually assaulted as well between 1 and 4 doctors. The reason I say between 1 and 4 is because at first in the reports, it says that there was only 1 doctor there, which obviously if you're in the medical field, you know that a doctor cannot be on his own doing surgery. So you have scrub techs, you have OR techs, you have nursings, you have scrubs. You have all these other people that are basically in alignment, calling time in and time out and stuff like that. But then 4 paragraphs down, there was 4 residents in total there with the doctor. And unfortunately, I had vaginal scrapings for 3 straight days, which you do not get from a Foley. A Foley is in what's called the urethra. And if you're assaulted, you get it through the vagina, unfortunately. And so I had been basically sent home without any medications. And then the doctor was telling me that I was abusing medications and I was a drug addict, which I was not. Anybody who knows me knows I don't really like medications. I don't like having to take any pain medications. So when I was on them, yes, I was like loopy, absolutely. But they were giving me Versed and Valium and then asking me questions, which is actually illegal. You sign paperwork, then you get medications, and then you cannot, by law, make any decisions for yourself because you are in an adverse situation, whereas basically you don't know, you're not coherent. Basically, you need to be coherent to sign paperwork and to get help. So if you get medications, we deem you not able to sign your own paperwork. That's why sometimes when you see if people are there with you, can they sign for you if you have point of attorney or something like that, power of attorney, they get to sign some of your paperwork. But once you're medicated, again, you're not supposed to sign any paperwork. And so with that being said, they put in screws and a bunch of metal, and unfortunately one of the screws came out, migrated up my leg, and then I had metal shavings all throughout my bottom left leg. And at the time, they made my foot look like a downward hockey stick. So basically it was down at this point and then slightly, well, not so slightly, pointed to the left. So I've had to rehabilitate my foot. Then I got rescued, went to Colorado. Colorado would not help me. They were like, we don't know what's going on. You can't even be here right now. We don't have any rehabilitation centers for you. So the doctors were like, well, you could just do physical rehab and you'll be fine, physical therapy. But when I got to the physical therapist, my ankles and my feet, anytime I put it below my eyebrows, it would get this big, turn purple and red, and then just start burning from my foot all the way up to my brain and through my spinal cord. So I was having massive burning attacks for a couple of years. Fast forward to getting the stem cell, it sort of helped. The only thing that really genuinely helped me, though, was getting intrathecal, which is through that spinal cord going up to the brain barrier. And then I've been able to walk now. I don't fall on my face. My leg does not swell as much. And I attribute that to both stem cells and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We'll shorten that for HBOT from this point forward. I've done over 40 sessions of 2-hour sessions for HBOT. And the reason that I wanted to do that is because each time I was getting HBOT, other people were noticing a difference. It helps with stem cell utilization and helps regenerate those stem cells. So I figured, well, if I'm getting billions of cells, I better do everything I possibly can. I kept my diet clean. I didn't eat sugar. I didn't eat wheat. There was no gluten in my diet, no dairy in my diet. Anything that you can grow is basically what I ate. Anything in a package, I threw away. So I basically was eating bison. I stopped eating beef. I don't eat fish anyway, so seafood wasn't a problem for me. And I didn't eat any dairy products at all. No cheese, no butter, no sour cream, because people are like, well, what about this? That's dairy. So when I started living a cleaner life, I noticed that the inflammation was starting to go down, and I was able to get off over 15 medications. I'm only on medications now for my pancreas, which is the enzymes, vitamins, and I still have depression because of what happened. So, and PTSD. What I've noticed the most was that HBOT was kind of my saving grace, because I'd get in there and the pain would start to get less and less and less as I went through. And the reason that I had to do so many is I was the worst candidate that BioAccelerator had ever seen. So they were juggling and throwing up balls just to see if it would work for me. And they weren't sure, and nobody was sure. And 7 of the doctors were like, no, this is a train wreck. We don't want to work with her. But the one doctor that believed in me, Catherine Halperin, she is the one, or Carolyn Halperin, she's the one who believed in me and said, well, if we're not going to do it for her case, why are we even in this? So she is the reason that I am alive, along with Misha Tate's mom coming with me to Colombia, because you have to have a mandatory companion. And I couldn't find a mandatory companion to come with me. People were working. And then people were scared to go to Colombia just because of the issues that are there. But what I want to say is you're absolutely safe when you get to BioAccelerator. There's a compound, basically. So the hospital, restaurants, clothing stores, anything that you want, like facials, pedicures, manicures, all that stuff is in one building. And then the hospital's there. So you have the hospital and the clinic, you have the restaurants, you have clothing stores, and a hotel. So everything is basically in one center locally where you can go. And then we went out and saw the coffee making from Medellin, Colombia, where a lot of people get their coffee beans from. And so what I've noticed now is I've had many people that have known me before I got to Oregon, and now that I've been here since 2014, after my last stem cell, it was such a significant difference that my brain was able to work better. And I attribute that, again, to hyperbaric chamber and stem cells put together, because both of them were attributed to helping me walk again. I was stuttering at one point before I wrote my book. So it was really hard for people to converse with me. I was getting into a bunch of arguments with people. I was hated for a long time because I didn't understand what people were saying. So it was kind of like babbling. And it took 4 editors to get my book actually out. And then recently I decided to write a children's book, and that came out a couple months ago. And it was basically to teach children not to steal. What I do has a direct effect on you and other people, and to listen to their gut intuition, so that if somebody is trying to take them or kidnap them, or peer pressure, or asking them to do something that they don't really want to do, that they really understand and learn to listen to their gut. So it starts a conversation between their parents and the child. And that's what I really am excited about at this point. And so, like I said, HBOT has changed my life, and I'm really hoping that at some point the government sees how much of a help it's done for a lot of people, especially with 2nd and 3rd degree burns, people with burn pits, people with heart issues, and people with a lot of inflammation like myself. And I still go into HBOT, between an hour and 2 hours, depending on what I'm doing for the day or if I have time for that day. And so I think that's why I'm a really big proponent for HBOT and really hope that Congress sees the value in it so that we can get more veterans in there so that we can reverse some of their medical issues.
That is such a powerful story, and I want to thank you so much for sharing it with me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to take notes here. And so you have been through so much, and it is a miracle that you're here with us today. And so, your story with the Army, you got sick, maybe a little bit of gaslighting there, as only the military can do to someone. I feel like it's
right. They're like, you're a drug addict. You're
Yeah.
not, there's no pain. You're not having these issues. What are you talking about? You don't have
right.
pancreatitis. I'm like,
Yeah.
my enzymes were over the 10,000s at some point.
And then, you got sick, and it was actually the Germans who the ones that really took care of you, not our own military, as
The Germans saved my life.
Yeah, as a lot of veterans can, attest to, the military healthcare is not the best, right?
No, it's the worst.
And then you go on from that, and you have further complications, and you lose 4 organs. Eventually, you're bedridden. Eventually, you make it to the VA, and the VA is supposed to be a place where veterans go and find healing and care. And for you, it was the opposite. I mean, you described
opposite.
You described torture, and there's no other way to put that. You were tortured at the VA.
Pretty much. San Antonio, Texas VA.
That should never happen to anyone. And I thank God that you are here in front of me talking to me today. But my question for you is, holy shit, man, like, what keeps you going? Because I don't know that I've ever met a more resilient person in my life. What is it in you, about you, that keeps you getting up every day and just kicking ass? Because I want to put it in a bottle and I want to sell it online to everybody.
So I honestly joke I'm a comedian at this point in time, even though I'm a nurse. I tell people I'm undieable. They have tried to kill me multiple times. They were trying to give me 3 nitroglycerin so that I would get into heart failure so that I would be non-existent. They've over-medicated me to where I was in a coma. I've been in 3 comas at this point in time. That still didn't do it. I've had people put a shotgun to my head. That didn't work because it didn't end up going off. I've had multiple reasons to give up, but for myself, I don't believe in suicide. I do believe in medical suicide because at the point where I was at, once I left Texas and I was rescued from Colorado, or from Texas, then from Colorado, a friend of mine came out and got me. We drove from Colorado to Texas. Oregon is the only state that allows basically you to die not on your own, but you can get death by suicide, basically, is all encompasses purposes. And I came here to die. I wanted to die, but nobody would let me. I signed the paperwork. I was ready to go. And they said, you have to be 6 months out from death. So you have to have cancer, or you have to have a medical reason to get assisted suicide, basically. And so since that wasn't going to happen, and it was like, well, what am I going to do? So I started picking fights with gang members and murderers that I knew. And people are like, you did what? I'm like, yeah, I started picking fights with people and hoping that they would kill me. And at one point I was like, well, take out your weapon. Let's go. And I had gang members literally looking at me and like, you're crazy. I'm not messing with you. I'm like, but this is what you do on a daily basis. Why not help me out? And for some reason, even the hardest of the gang members that I had reached that were in prison for over 15 years would not do anything to me. They took me on underneath their wing and they were like, we really like you. We think you're hilarious. And we're going to protect you. So for a while, my brother was my first assailant when I was young. He was into me. And then when he couldn't get his way, he had basically 4 of his friends gang rape me at 10. So at one point I had the Harley Davidson people that I knew that were riding, and I won't name who they are. I was just about to, but it's a gang that rides certain motorcycles for the Harley Davidsons as well. And you guys can figure it out from there. But they would rev their engine on each corner because my brother was getting out of Chino prison, which is a pretty harsh prison in California. It was kind of one of the worst at the time. And he was coming after me. And so they would rev their engines to let me know that I was safe. And so for everything that I've been through, and the hardest of criminals that wouldn't kill me or let me die, and then the medical system trying to kill me and me not dying, and me being in 3 comas and still not dying, I had a lot against me. And I think at this point in time, about 3 months ago, I came to terms with this. And I said, all right, if I am not dying, I need to figure out what to do to live. So I want to make the biggest difference I possibly can. So I started writing Congress, and I started writing my representatives. And I had done this before, but I got in trouble for writing my representatives because the military does not like you telling everybody what happened. So I found out 6 months before Resilient Warrior was coming out that I had 2 armed guard Marines go up to my friend's door and ask them, what is Mindy writing about, number one? And when is it supposed to come out? And what can we do to prevent this? And he's like, I'm not her friend. I don't know what you're talking about. They pulled out a photograph and they said, you were at Mod Pizza at this date and this time. We know that you guys are friends. We've seen you on multiple occasions. And he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, you need to go ask her what her book is about. She never talked to me about her book. She just told me that the military messed her up, and that's all I know. And they threatened him. So now he's not even in Oregon. He fled to Utah with his kids and his family. Then I saw him one day because he wanted to come and visit, and he went to a radio station and was doing stuff because he sells CBD and CBN products, CBD, CBG, CBN. And so I saw him and I'm like, hey, dude, why'd you ghost me? You know, that ain't cool. That ain't right. That ain't nice. And I'd seen the fear in men's eyes before, don't get me wrong, but I'd never seen the fear like I did in his eyes when he was telling me the story. And so I had to believe what he had to say and tell me that it had gotten so bad that he needed to leave. And so then I started basically telling friends of mine, you know, if you want to be friends with me, there's going to become a price. You know, you might get told you have to say or do things that you might not want to do. So you might not want to be my friend anymore. And I had people leave me. And then I had other people that were solid. And they were like, we're not going anywhere. We know who you are. And we love you. And I had never received the amount of love that I have since I've moved to Oregon. So I think what keeps me going is knowing that regardless of wanting the love, I receive it anyway. And regardless of wanting to live or die, I am here. So I decided 3 or 4 months ago, I would come back to the medical system and I would try to make a difference to where other people, if they were struggling or if they weren't doing well, that I could at least share some of my knowledge, because I've been a researcher now and I've been in the medical field for 31 years. So that's an awful long time to waste and have my bachelor's degree from the University of Colorado to waste. And so now I am a contractor and I work with the state of Oregon, and it's called long-term care nursing. And it's the best job besides being an interventional radiology nurse that I've ever had. And it's very fulfilling. And I think that though I thought I had found my calling, at this point in time, whatever I can do to help other veterans to sustain a better life and better living is what I want to do. And if my voice can make a difference and help Congress understand that we really genuinely need help, especially at the VA centers, I've been fighting since 2014 to actually get us community care. And so I'd written other countries, I wrote Congress for that, and now we're finally getting it through a bunch of other people that obviously were involved, because it's obviously never a one-person battle when you get stuff, to include people with burn pits. And Leroy was involved with the PACT Act, and he went to BioAccelerator as well. and HBOT has helped him as well. And when I literally just got home last night late from a camping and horse retreat with women, and we were talking about it. And a friend that I'd met there, she attributes HBOT to somebody else's healing and people with cancer that they tried really hard to get an HBOT at home but weren't successful. And so I told her, listen, I'm going to go on a podcast tomorrow. Let me know whatever you want to say to get this story out there. And if I have the time or chance to come again, maybe we can get you on and have you tell your story. And so she's like, well, let me just tell you what happened. And, you can kind of reiterate what I said. And I was like, okay. But most of the time I have people that get so comfortable with me that they tell their stories. And I've helped people not commit suicide on my watch. I've had some people commit suicide, but out of, we'll say over 100, but we'll just use 100 as a reference. I've only had 3 die, and that's a very low component. And so for me, most people will say once they've heard my story, they're like, oh my God, I thought I had something to bitch about, but I don't. There's no reason I can even complain when you're in the room. And I was like, no, I want to hear all your complaints, because then you get it out, number one. And number two, I am not in a competition with anybody. I don't want to be in a competition for who's got the worst injuries. My internal self is like, there's a bomb that's reached and it's already gone off a plethora of times inside. But on the outside, I look great. So people are like, oh, you're faking it. There's no way that you could have ever gone through this. And then they look in my room, if they've ever come to my house, and I have like a half a room full of medical records. And they're like, oh, God, I've never seen so many medical records for somebody my entire life. And I was like, you know what? I have to have proof, because if the military ever says I'm fine, or they just decide to take away benefits and stuff like that, I at least have proof, and that's what I'm trying to do. Every time I do a podcast, every time I go on a film, because I've done a couple films, independent films, anytime I do public speaking, I genuinely want people to know my story so that they can give other people hope. And I think that's what fills my cup up personally, is helping other people. And it always has. I've been helping people since I was 5, when I used to go into old people's homes, adopt them, then they die, and we get a new grandpa or grandma. Then we go to feed the homeless and do other sorts of things. So I think, to be honest with you, I was created to help other people.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. There's no denying that you were built for that exact purpose. And I hear you tell your story, and I know that it's impacting people left and right. Everybody who is going to hear this story is going to just be kind of a little overcome with emotion. Some of it they're going to relate to, but some of it, you're right, they're going to do a little bit of comparative suffering. And you mentioned that, and comparative suffering is really the thing, right? Is my pain versus your pain, but you're suffering more, and therefore I don't feel that I'm entitled to suffer. And that's not true. Everyone is suffering their own thing. They're fighting their own battle. You are unique in that you've fought so many battles that people can really relate to you. And a couple things that really stick out for me, and I want to give people the opportunity to learn, is you mentioned military sexual assault and women. And I feel that
it's not just women, it's women and men.
Yeah.
And I've helped so many men as well.
Right.
Unfortunately, my friend wanted to commit suicide and he wouldn't come out because of it. And then when I came out, he was so angry with me because he was stationed with me. And he's like, you shouldn't have told anybody, this, that, the other. And I was like, you need to be okay with me telling people what happened to me. I will never tell anybody what happened to you because you're embarrassed about it. However, should you feel the need to want to get therapy, I'll help you. And there's a lot more men that unfortunately have taken the route of being angry at women because they've been sexually assaulted either by a man or by women. And people don't realize that women can sexually assault men. And so I unfortunately am amongst a shit ton of women that have been sexually assaulted, either in the military or out of the military in the systems. But then there's a lot of sexual assault and sexual harassment in the Army or in the military, excuse me, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever you want to plug in, whoever you want to plug in. I was in the Army, so I can speak for my service, but it just seems like woman after woman after woman's like, yeah, I was sexually assaulted, but I couldn't come out. And when we do come out, there are repercussions. And it's not fun to be able to come out and then think that you're going to be in this safe haven only to be turned around and told either you're lying, you're making it all up. Surely this couldn't have been done by this guy. He's a nice guy. Or he's so powerful that people are like, well, why would he pick you? I don't know. Because he wanted me and I didn't want him back. And he was married and wasn't happily married or whatever, And then I've heard so many different stories that they got sexually assaulted off base, because a lot of the times when you're off base, it's not included. And so you can't prove it, or people feel so lost in the system that even they know, because I tell them my story. They're like, how can we tell anybody? Nothing's going to happen. It's just going to get worse for us. So they commit suicide because they feel like they have no other option. And I think that's also why I'm here to tell people there are many other options, and you can go see a therapist for it, and you can get medically evaluated. Will there be repercussions? Absolutely. And I won't say that there won't be. But for me, it was worth the repercussions. And I even tell people I would be tortured 8 times over just to be where I'm at right now. It wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
But,
well, I'm sure if anyone could make it through, it would be you.
Right.
And I want to thank you for spending time with me today. You are such a resource for anybody who's going through anything. And I know that you've written a book. Please tell everyone, about your book, where they can get it, your website, social media. There's probably going to be people who are going to want to, get your book, learn more about you, maybe reach out to you because they need some help and maybe some resources.
Please do reach out.
How do people get a hold of you and find your material?
So I'm on most of the social media platforms. Facebook, look it up by Mindy Dougherty, Mindy. Last name is Dougherty, Dougherty, spelled like bread dough, and then just add ERTY. I'm on Amazon.com, and my book is called A Resilient Warrior. Not The Resilient Warrior, but A Resilient Warrior. And it was dedicated to the Vikings because on the History Channel, I had some extras reach out to me, and we're still friends today. And they were on Game of Thrones, the Vikings, and stuff like that. So if you guys can check those out as well. But I am on Amazon.com. My books are, the children's book that I wrote is called A Dragon's Voice, and it has a blue character on there. So it's really easy to find. And that's also Mindy Dougherty. So you have to put in A Dragon's Voice, Mindy Dougherty, and A Resilient Warrior, Mindy Dougherty. And you'll see my face with 2 swords, basically, and like an Irish shield. And on the back of it, it gives you kind of a synopsis of what you'll read for the book. It may be triggering, so I do tell people, if you do get triggered, honestly, please reach out to me. I'm on Facebook, Mindy Dougherty. I'm on Instagram as Mindy Dougherty, but you also see WTRGPSY, which is Water Gypsy without the vowels, because I became a Watsu practitioner, which means I give shiatsu, massage, and hot water. So I have different hats as well, of course. And so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Basically, they're all Mindy Dougherty. If you see one face on there, you'll notice that every face is the same. I kept it that way for a reason, so that if you did find one, you could find all. Or you can Google me. Google's a very fun place to go, but it does have my social medias on there as well as pictures and stuff like that if you were ever to look on there. And on the side note, I've been modeling since I was a baby, as well as forced to model. So there's pictures that people can see from there. I've been in independent films as well, and working on some other series of doing some things. So if anybody wants to reach out and work with me, that'd be great as well.
You are a total badass, and I am grateful that you took time to share your story with me. And I hope that people are listening to this. They're encouraged, they're inspired, And if they're on the fence about reaching out in any way, shape, or form, that this is the thing that pushes them to go get it.
Yeah, and I really appreciate Kevin for telling you about me, as well as Robbie Grayson, because Robbie got me in touch with Kevin, and Kevin was like, you know what? I think you'd be perfect to talk to my friend. I'm like, all right, well, let him know I'm available and I'm open to talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin's been great. He's introduced me to a lot of people, and good for him too, because I know he's been through HBOT and it's really helped him. And so I'm glad that it's helped you, and I'm looking forward to hearing from others who it's helped as well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for your time.